Hey, driving in on a Monday morning, I was trying to think about some topics, and one came to me. I've been so fortunate for the last 30 years to work on Music Row here in Nashville. And it's funny, the night I got into Nashville, I had a weekend to drive from West Texas, try to find a place to live. And the night I got in, I drove straight to Music Row. And I was in this area of town, 16th and 17th Avenue. I couldn't find it. And I kept asking people, like, yeah, I'm looking for Music Row. Humbly, it was like Rand McNally world, right? It was all like analog maps. And people would say, oh, yeah, you're right here. It's just a block over that way. And I would look, I was driving around, I didn't see anything, just a bunch of old houses at the time, And finally, it dawned on me, I was on Music Row. I think I was expecting, this was 1996, 95. Good Lord, 95. I think I was expecting Vegas. I don't know. I was expecting like neon and glitz, and it was not that at all. It was like these old houses. Still is a little bit, not much is left of that. But you'd see little signs, little publishing company signs on these little houses. And occasionally there'd be a big building like Mercury Records, Warner Brothers, MCA. But it was not what I expected at all. And but it was actually quite charming. Because it was so low key, there wasn't as much attention on it. And, I got real lucky. I moved here and I toured for 18 months maybe. And then I came off the road and I ran a rental company on Music Row. Thankfully, the lady that owned it, her husband, Richie Albright, Godspeed Richie, was Waylon Jennings' original drummer. And I was blessed that Richie took me under his wing, took me all around Music Row, all the studios, all the publishing companies, and introduced me as the kid. And as you can imagine, Richie was so beloved to everyone on Music Row because he was like Waylon's right-hand guy forever. And so we would drive around and he would point out locations. He would be like, see that house right there? That's where Waylon and I flushed the cocaine down the toilet when the feds were raiding the building. See this house a couple doors down? That's where George and Tammy used to have their affair, up on the third story. Good Lord, what's wrong today? But anyway, it was priceless. Richie taking me around, introducing me to people. And of course, I got to meet Waylon, Willie, John, Kris, and it was kind of like, hey, this is the kid. And what was interesting about that group of people in hindsight, anytime I was around and one of them would enter the building, they wouldn't walk in like, hey guys, what's going on? They would walk in and immediately tell a joke before they said hi. And I loved that. And all four of them were like that. And it was so cool that Richie kind of allowed me to be around in those moments because it was very relaxed, because it's just like friends, these legends are hanging out, but I just got to see them hanging out as friends. It's kind of some old Music Row stories for me. And, having someone who had been there in the early days of Music Row, making those introductions kind of automatically just put you in the family, like, guess this person's okay. And so, it's funny, I used to say this, it's not so much the case now, but all the action on Music Row, it didn't happen on the street. It was always in the alleys. And so on the way home from work, I would always drive up the alley, because in the alleys were the back entrances to all the buildings and studios and publishing companies. And you could really get a sense of what was going on, who was where, doing what. And I really miss that now. It's, not to sound like that person, but everything's a high rise now. There's not a ton of studios. I mean, there are still studios on Music Row. There's still a fair amount of publishing companies. It's just very different right now. And that's fine. Different isn't always bad. It's just different. And so those early years of Music Row and were so special and so informative to me about the music business. Back then, in the course of a day, I might be in 8 to 12 different studios. And so it really gave you a sense of what was going on in the town instead of, say, you interned maybe in 1 or 2 studios. I mean, you knew what was going on there, but you might not know like what's going on all over town. So, years later, I started Rack and Roll, and it's always so informative. And people that have worked for me over the years, we've had some really people that became really successful that have worked for us over the years. My favorite one to tell stories about is my buddy Zach Crowell. Shout out Zach Crowell. He was always keenly aware when he would go and drop off gear, what was going on and who was who. And that's so important in whatever you're doing in your young life, or whatever industry, identifying who are the players, what do they do, what's their backstory. That way, one day, if you're lucky enough to have a conversation with someone like that, you kind of know something about them. And I don't know, over the years, it seems like the people that have worked for me that were interested in all of that were successful after they left. The ones that were so distracted by where they wanted to be instead of where they were didn't always work out so well. I don't know if there's a correlation there. It's just an observation. But anyway, Music Row today it's very different, but there's a lot of cool things too. We have restaurants that we used to not have, and access to things we didn't used to have. So anyway, I don't know if that's interesting or not. There's so many stories, so many random run-ins I've had over the years, and maybe sometime some of those will pop up and I'll share those. But anyway, random Music Row rumblings today. Okay, hope you guys are well, and I hope you have a blessed week. Thanks for watching.